We'll start with adopting the agenda. Can I get a motion? No motion. Oh, Councillor Danaka.
I make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
All right. Any discussion on that? Councillor Gilroy?
I know that we were just talking about this a few minutes ago. AUMA is mentioned in the CAO's report. Can we make any motions after that to make sure we are all registered in that?
Yep.
As part of his report? Or
Yep.
do we need to do that separately?
No, we can do it as part of his report because
Thank
it's
you.
in there. Anything else? Seeing nothing else, all those in favor? It's carried. And no scheduled delegations. Any public delegations? Chris?
Nothing to say.
Oh, okay.
No.
Yeah.
Maybe light up at the next meeting.
All right. All right. Moving on to the fire chief's report then. Can I get a motion? Councillor Gilroy?
The council received the fire chief's July and August 2020 reports for information.
All right. And I see we've got a new person in to talk to us, eh? Yeah. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so sitting in for Trevor. He's on holiday.
Yeah, well.
Thanks. I don't have a whole lot to add to Trevor's July minutes there. As far as August goes, in addition to the calls and the training, a couple of good things came up where membership completed their PARQ, so their physical fitness tests. About 90% of the members and all passed quite well. We had some mutual aid practices with the county for more of our town strategies when it came to water delivery methods and some communications, which was very successful. It's nice to see we're all on the same page if we do require them in town. And with it being holiday season, we kind of expected, even with the COVID stuff, poor membership in town as people are going on holidays and stuff. But it was really good. We managed to fill trucks and maintain a good complement of members for calls and training. That's all I got.
That's it for you,
That's
okay.
it.
Well, I'll turn it over to council to see if they want to have any questions for you, and I'll ask them to be kind of nice, hopefully. Yeah. Okay, well, Councillor Stenhouse and Councillor Gilroy, and then you didn't have. Oh, okay, Danaka, then Gilroy.
So I just have a couple questions. The first one is in your July report that you took an ATV to Peace River for warranty work.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what the repair was on it, but the only dealership, well, the closest dealership to deal with the warranty repair was Peace River, so we had to get a member to donate his time to drive it there and bring it back.
So this ATV couldn't have been bought in town? Is that what
It
you're
was
saying?
bought in town, but Kawasaki is now out of business in town. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my other question was, somewhere in the report here, it says that our members are down and you're recruiting again?
Yes, we are kind of going on a new method of recruitment instead of just a continual recruitment phase, bringing people in at different stages of training and stuff. We've decided to try and do it more like a once or twice a year recruitment phase, so that we can bring members in and give them a good dose of primary training to get them active right away and on trucks. So, but we are down to it's said in there a solid 20 members that actively show up. So.
Okay, Councillor Danaka.
Councillor Stenhouse actually asked my question about the loss of members.
Okay, Councillor Gilroy.
I know we've made and I don't mean to be mean. I'm going to try not to. You can defer to Trevor for later. But we tend to put down the numbers of hours used for the county and for the town. And I had, my question on this is, we tend to say the county uses so many hours and the town uses so little. Determine those hours by the number of people per call. For example, maybe the county needs 10 people to go to a particular fire, and we only need 1-2 hours. That would make a big difference if you're looking at people hours. So how does that reflect? Because I want to make sure that we're looking at apples to apples here with our work in the county and in the town.
So it goes based on a membership thing, right? So as long as we can sustain whatever issues we have in the county for calls with the lowest amount of members that we need, we'll use those members. We won't amp up, and in town the same. So it's all dependent on the situation of the call as to how many members and how many hours that are laid out for it.
So in general, would you say that if we don't look at the number of people going to the calls, generally we spend more time in the county answering calls than in the town?
No, maybe I can back up what you were saying, and I just want to make sure I'm clear. You're saying that if you send 3 people out of the town and they're there for 2 hours, there's 3 people, that's 3 times 2 equals 6 hours. And I think that's the way you guys calculate it, right?
In the August one, it says a total of 136 volunteer person hours were recorded while responding to emergencies. 102 hours for the county and 33.5 were for the town of High Prairie.
Correct.
And my question is, when we're looking at those hours, do they reflect the fact that the county, when we answer county calls, do they need more people? Or are there more calls for them? And is that why the discrepancy numbers were? Because it's more the idea of, I want to justify, if we can, the fact that we are truly doing more times to the county as opposed to more people hours. Know what I mean?
But that's what the hours are, people hours.
Yes, but if we're, some things, if it's a grass fire, for example, we'll need more people to go to the county. That doesn't mean that we're spending more time on the county, it just means we're bringing more people to it. So I'm just trying to see maybe a more balanced approach as to their need for us, as opposed to the magnitude of the calls that we get in the county. That would really lopside the numbers.
I'm not sure if I follow you, but I'll see. Maybe.
So it'd be, like, I couldn't really say if it was more for the town or the county, but what we do break it down to is the hours per man put on those jobs. If we can in the county, and the job is a 2-person job, we make it work with the 2 people, right? Same thing as in town, just to limit those hours and the amount of resources out, so we're ready for anything else that may come up in addition. With that, it's all dependent on what kind of calls come in. So, I mean, you can see in August, the amount of motor vehicle collisions we had on the highways. There was quite a few more calls in August in the county. There was. As far as specifically which call needed how many members, it's all dependent on what type of calls coming in.
No problem. It would just be, I guess it'd be too much to track also that way. It's just that I know that times when the numbers look so lopsided, it's like saying, in this case, we went strictly by numbers, we'd have a third compared to them. They had 102, so 3 times the number for the county calls than us. And so it's just one thing when we're talking to the county, it's kind of nice to say, okay, well, we had 7 calls in our month over here, we did 10 to yours, or 15 to yours. I'm thinking of it that way as opposed to man hours.
Sorry, and if you think about it in the man hours kind of aspect, with the larger infrastructure that we do have in town also, if there's something, typically your manpower is quite a bit higher because you're spending quite a few more hours on those large pieces of infrastructure for protection and extinguishment.
Okay, Councillor Rose.
So you guys still struggle lots with monitored alarms, eh? Like that seems to be the biggest waste of your time, not waste of your time, use of your time. Play on words there a little bit, but. And I saw two to the RCMP station
Yes, I can't remember
cleaning
exactly what it was.
solutions?
Pardon?
for cleaning solutions. What does that mean? Due to cleaning solution?
I suspect it was a mister or something in the air that set a sensor off, but I don't know the particulars on the call without the file in front of me. I didn't attend that one. But, yeah, with that, I know Trevor, I think, has actually billed for some of the nuisance alarms so far, so I think that may be a
So
good
each time you
deterrent.
guys actually go out, like how long does somebody have to turn off their alarm before it isn't? Because I mean, it happens lots, right?
Sometimes we do get stood down before we have a member get to the hall. What we did to mitigate kind of that loss of hours of membership was we have a duty officer on call. So when those alarms come in, we have a single member respond to those alarms to make sure it's viable or not before we send out a second page to make actually get the ball rolling on anything.
That makes sense.
So it, to answer your question, I guess it knocks it down to about a half an hour for that duty officer.
Thanks.
Yeah, I wanted to just sort of follow up on that one a little bit. I noticed that there was one you said billed, so that means when we go out to it, we finally billed because they haven't corrected the issue.
Yeah, so there is a tiered system that Trevor has in place to bill for those nuisance alarms. We will give a freebie, right? So it's,
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it's the third
you don't
one.
know you have a
before
problem
they're
until it
billed.
starts going.
So
Yes,
the RCMP's on their last leg here?
they are, yeah, yeah. So yeah, Trevor, actually there was another building that had the same issue in the last little while, so Trevor will be doing some more paperwork when he gets off holidays.
That's good. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
And with that, if there is an alarm that's being monitored by whatever company, do they just automatically dispatch you? Because, there's an alarm. It could be an intruder. It could be a water break. It's not necessarily, fire. But do they always notify you regardless of what the cause is?
It's all dependent on the monitoring system. There's a few different systems and companies out there. So however they're set up, they might have a general alarm system that will trigger and call out all emergency services, or there will be, specific ones that are actually labeled and tagged to a smoke detector or a sprinkler system,
Okay.
and stuff like that.
So it depends.
It depends, yeah.
All right, thank you. Well, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
And doing that. All right, let's vote on receiving for his report for information. All those in favor? Carried. Moving on to our regular meeting minutes. Can I motion on those? Councillor Rose?
The council approved the minutes from the August 25th, 2020 regular meeting of council as presented.
All right. Did anybody see any errors or omissions? Seeing none. All those in favor? Carried. Oh, did you have your hand up? You did. Okay. Okay. I didn't think so. So that's why I was going to see if you were opposed. Moving on then to 8.1, Business Support Network. Motion, Councillor Gilroy.
The council received a request to have a member of council represent High Prairie at the Business Support Network meetings for information. And the reason I'm saying that is we're about a month away from organization. Unless she's going to have it after organization, I don't see a purpose of appointing one person for 1 month or one meeting. Plus, we've had this before.
We can talk about it. You got the motion. I'll open the floor for discussion. Okay, we'll go Councillor Stenhouse and Councillor Rose.
So there isn't a letter following this request. So why a member of council for one meeting? Do we know?
Well, you were at the meeting and the discussion, and part of what came out of that was, I know that the county's council is bringing this same motion forward to their council. So they said, do you want to bring it forward to ours? And I said, we might as well, so they put it in. That's why it's here. The county is appointing somebody, we don't have to, but that was their discussion. And I know you were at the meeting, and Councillor Rose was there when they did the presentation, so.
Yeah, but I have a different perspective of what happened there.
Okay, well.
I
that's
just
good.
seen her present.
Yep.
Nobody asked any questions, and I just seen her presentation. I don't recall anyone asking questions or.
Well, her request was to have somebody to help on there. That was what her ask was during the presentation.
But this is saying for one meeting,
Yeah, for,
for their very first meeting. They just want somebody there for one meeting.
where do you see one meeting? I'm just trying to, I didn't really catch that, to be honest.
That would come off of what I just said when I said the organizations in a month.
But you're probably right, Judy. Like, I think it is only, and I think that was a conversation, because remember, we're having a conversation with her in the hallway after the meeting, and what she wanted was to launch this and have a meeting and have a county representative, a town representative. She knew that the organizational meetings were coming up in October, and that way we could see whether or not it was going to come to organizational meeting. They were actually going to go forward with this as a committee, right? Because then you would still have to approve it as a committee for council. Like, I got the impression she just wanted to have an appointment from each council to show support for the project, and that they've already got some business community members that are interested. And remember, she had said that there was some business community space that they were going to use a boardroom to have the meetings. And at that point, after their first meeting, they would see the support of the community. If it had the support of the community, then it would come back to councils for to put it as a committee with terms of reference for the next organizational meeting. So I think it's a member for one meeting, and that's probably where that conversation kind of came from. Doesn't necessarily mean that the member that goes to this meeting would be the member that our council would, like, if we chose somebody, we could choose somebody still different to represent us for the entire year, but we would get the feedback. And that's what she was looking for. Deanna was looking, I think it was Community Futures and, what's Deanna with? Labor, Alberta Labor and Immigration. Yeah. And they just saw that there was a need for some community support when they reached out to the business community and asked them what kind of information they were provided, what groups in the community are providing information as far as COVID supports and grant opportunities and help with applications for some of the new government programs. They were saying the feedback they got was that they weren't getting, the business community wasn't getting that information and didn't feel like they had support. So that's what this group would like to do, is be able to step up and offer that support and some help with those programs. And where we saw value, or where I personally see value, is that there's paid employees. These are both organizations that are funded by the government. And we struggle in this community when we say, hey, let's just put it up to volunteers. Like, we've struggled with the chamber. The chamber tries, but it's a volunteer organization, right? Everybody, nobody's getting paid, and we have to rely on people finding the time to run an effective and efficient chamber. If that's not happening right now, there's a group of people that, because they're government employees already, know the programs, and are trying to launch this business support network. So I think it's something we should support, and in essence, I mean, even just the one meeting, just to see and bring that feedback back to our council and see what the council thinks after we've supported. If we don't support it and the county doesn't support it, I think it's harder for the Community Futures and for Alberta Works to get the business members to support it. So.
And it does say first meeting under discussions, options and benefits. That's, and it is really the first meeting to start with, and then it would go on if we deemed it necessary, and we would have to get like the terms of reference and everything too, before it would be an ongoing commitment to this, or if we wanted it to be ongoing. Yeah, Councillor Courtley.
So I wasn't at the meeting with her, but is her mandate to utilize Alberta labor people that are out of work now? Is she working on that, or is this to immigrate workers from other countries into our employment needs?
Well, and the others can correct me if I misspeak, but what I got from it was, I wouldn't say that was the intent of either of that organization. However, it could be. Like, she was looking for what would this group do. They saw this as being able to have some getting business people together to do presentations to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And she used some of the COVID as an example. There's the grants from the federal government, and there's businesses that don't understand the grant, didn't think that they qualified for the grant, and she says, no, you do. And so they could do a presentation on COVID grants, for example, to make sure everybody understood what you have to do, and have the business people in there that could say, yeah, I applied for it and I got it, it was easy, and this is how you do it. So it could be we're having issues with immigration, or, you know, and if that was an issue, then she could work on that with them.
Okay, because that's where I was going to go with that, is because of obvious reasoning with COVID and the way the whole economy and our workforce is right now. There's a glut of people that are looking for work, and if she's bypassing that and going to immigrate and try to bring workforce here when
That wasn't it at all.
that's not
Yeah,
okay. Well, that was my
not it.
question, because it's Alberta labor and immigration, right? So if it's in the name, it's usually part of the swing, right? So
No, I think she was looking at finding out what are the issues for businesses in town, and then working with them to help resolve them, whether it be by presentations or something like that.
And even, and exactly what Mayor Panasic said, but even more than presentation is to acquire a list of members and emails. And like, that's why she said she did some research just to see what kind of support, even via email, is happening right now to local business people. Because not everybody can come to the presentation and come to a meeting. But if you're signed up and you're on the list, then you would get updated on whether there's a new grant, whether there's some useful information in some capacity, or even then she said she can support them via email, like questions and answers kind of thing. So it was a support network that she could offer beyond the presentations as well. And she is linked to Community Futures too, and they have their own programs, and they do their own, well, I guess some granting, but some business loans and stuff as well. So it was introducing the community to some of those programs that maybe they're not aware of.
okay.
Councillor Stenhouse.
But are we not duplicating on a committee that we already have, as in the chamber? So are we having issues with the chamber not bringing our businesses together, or is this just going to be a duplicate committee?
Well, I think, you know, the chamber is an organization that's running, but there's still some gaps there. And so in some ways this would be a duplication, but as Councillor Rose says, you know, it's a volunteer organization and may not always get some of the stuff done that some of the businesses would like to see. I mean, they're doing the best that they can with the resources that they have and the time that they have, but I think there's still some gaps there for the business community. And I think that's what she was identifying, is that there was still some gaps that she'd like to try and fill and work with the chamber. Like, they've talked to the chamber and wanted to work with them. So it wasn't an us or them, it's working together to get the best possible support for business community.
So just some more things. So she did inform us that she had reached out to the chamber. She hasn't spoke to them because there was nobody that responded to her. And they were invited as well to that meeting. And they didn't come, just like we were invited. So when the mayor says there's a gap, I think that if we want to support the business community, we're being offered a really easy opportunity to just say yes and send somebody to a meeting and see if we can help them support the business community. We're not asked to reinvent the wheel. And the other thing I think that, I don't know if all council members are aware, there's a lot of communities that put a member of council on chamber, as well as on community futures or other economic development driver groups like this. You don't have to just have one, right? All we're talking about is a council member to attend a meeting or two and bring back some information to council. This council can make the decision at any time not to be part of something, and if we see that there's no need, we step back from it, right? But right now, if the business community is saying they're not being supported, I've been parts of businesses in the community, and I can honestly say that we don't get any support from other organizations right now. Like, there's no emails coming through. It would be nice to see that if there are some programs that offer some support, that minimally we're getting an email about it. If we want business to thrive in the community, I think it's a very small piece to play right now is to just send somebody to a meeting.
Absolutely. Doesn't hurt to learn.
Any other discussion on this one? Okay. We have a motion to receive this for information. And I'm hearing that there's some talk we could send somebody for one, but let's go on the vote for receiving for information. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, so that motion is defeated. Does somebody else want to make another motion? Councillor Courtley.
The council appoint Councillor Debbie Rose to represent High Prairie at the Business Support Network meeting.
Okay.
I just slew-footed her, so
Yeah.
I didn't ask her, but
And it probably should read to attend a startup meeting
Yeah,
kind
and
of
that-
thing,
I
as
think
opposed to meetings. Because
yeah.
because we're not looking at it as an ongoing one at this point.
Yeah. Scratch and change.
Go ahead.
Maybe just for clarity, just in case this meeting takes two, do you just want to call startup meetings and differentiate before it starts as a committee? Just in case there's
Yeah, there
More
could
than
be
one
two,
startup meeting.
and there's kind of before it really starts rolling, just to give you guys a little bit of leeway. Just maybe something you want to consider.
Sure.
Okay.
What would your motion read then?
Startup meeting.
Okay, startup meetings?
The Business Support Network startup meeting.
Okay, startup meeting. Okay, now we're on the same page. Okay, Councillor Rose, are you able to attend? Well, we don't know what
We don't know
dates.
when
We
they
don't
are,
know
but-
dates, so if something changes,
I'd
then
like
we
them-
won't be
You want
able
to
to.
add more alternative?
We
Or
should,
alternate?
we
Of
should
Arlen-
probably
or
put an alternate in just because,
Of Councillor Courtney?
yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, perfect.
I guess I didn't.
Okay, or
Are we putting a name or just alternate?
Or alternate.
or alternate.
I think we need to name the alternate.
Yeah, we need to name the alternate. Yep.
I'm
Or-
sorry, Debbie, I won't do that to you ever.
Yeah. Yeah, or an alternate of Arlen Courtney.
That's okay, you know where she lives.
They're neighbors now. Yeah. All right. Any other discussion on this one then? Okay, all of those in favor? Opposed? It is carried. Moving to the discussion on the ATCO franchise fee. Can I get a motion here? Councillor Rose?
The council approves to maintain the current franchise fee of 7.5% of distribution for 2021.
All right. Discussion on this topic?
Would have been nice to have someone here, the way we have in the past.
Miss Amanda, eh?
Yeah,
She changed and moved positions and we don't really get that support anymore.
that's true.
if we had any concerns for ADCO, it would have been nice to have them here to talk about some of the projects we've talked about for ADCO, but they have not addressed. So, but yeah, if it's just strictly we're dealing with the fee, no question.
I mean, it is an opportunity to look at another revenue source, but we're already sort of at the
You mean by
mid to
increasing
higher,
it?
huh?
You mean by increasing it?
Yeah, by increasing it, but it's another way of looking at it.
Well, we're already at the mid-range, eh?
Well, yeah, and when I was looking at the list that they provided, we're more at the, well, we're not the highest for communities our size and in our region, but some are higher, but most of them were a little bit lower. So yeah, we're in the upper mid part of it.
Other communities do zero.
They don't ask for any part of that. So that the rates to the homeowner would be less, right?
Well, I'm glad I'm not living at high level.
Yeah.
Slave Lake is 10.54.
Yeah.
12.10
That's just 10.
for
Yeah,
high level.
or some more.
No, but Slave Lake, which is closer to us.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
You're looking at closeness.
So
Yeah.
there are a couple higher than us, but most of them, I'm going to say, are probably just a little bit below. But I think it's a fair and reasonable one, given what others are doing. We're not way outside the range. Councilor Rose?
Do you have an opinion, CAO?
So I think times are changing, and I think we're going to be entering into some difficult financial times. And I think as we proceed into this next fiscal year, as well as develop our next 4-year budget, I think these types of things need to be investigated a little bit more. With COVID, there's a lot of financial pressures out there, and although I think council has the ability to make the change, and there could be justification for that, I think as you look at the statistics in some of the communities that are on there, typically the larger communities have a higher percentage. So you get into the bigger municipalities, they typically have up to like the 10% range. But considering council's, I think, compassion to residents and businesses at this stage, with tax concessions, etc., maybe something you want to just consider in the future, maybe direct administration to do a little bit more digging as part of more wholesome review of, I guess, our financial state and what we plan on doing, maybe not so much on this part this upcoming year, but for the next budget cycle. So I think considering the state of the local economy, this isn't a bad thing, maybe to do the status quo, but I think as we proceed, I think it's something that should be investigated a little bit further. Because it is a revenue opportunity, and although there is still only one ratepayer out there, so I think that's something we always got to keep at the back of our minds. However, a lot of municipalities move more to the service model. If you're utilizing the service, then you pick up more of the fees. So it assists a little bit on the revenue, the tax side, which is more of a flat piece. So I would strongly recommend looking at this at least in the next budget cycle, but if council would like us to do something here more immediate, we can. Long answer.
What's the deadline on this that we have to pass this by?
We, in the ACTCO letter, we need to give public notification and provide, publish before October 14th, and then provide ACTCO with your response by November 11th. So you do have time, but it is a bit rushed. We don't have too much discussion yet on the 2021 budget, or there's a lot of still unknowns there, but it's something we can still do. There still is time. It is rushed.
I'm just following back on Councilor Rose's question there.
Well, and I'm glad to hear your answer, Rod, and I think that probably that's wise is to really look into how that what opportunities we may have going forward, where we're going to get funding going forward for 2021. We don't know sort of we don't know the future right now, so maybe looking into it in the future. But I do think that we can't. I would like to see that we don't raise rates right now to citizens based on this year being already challenging enough. So I think keeping our 7.5 for now and then seeing if we can relook at it. Now, would you like a motion on having administration look into it, or do you just want to note that, and or do I just tell Nancy over there that she's trying not to make eye contact? Like, in order to look into it for, say, like, just for the next year.
You can absolutely do a motion and it's on record. I think what it also does is it shows property owners and the citizens that, things are changing and council's gonna have to look at things, look at the budget and make some difficult decisions. And so I think it, it certainly gives us administration direction, but I think it also sends a message to, the property owners and residents of High Prairie that, we got to look at everything. We have to look at everything. So I think it serves two purposes. So I like motions.
I like motions too.
Councillor Courtly.
So basically, the number we're looking at, so as far as the franchise fee, that's the amount of money that we actually receive from ATCO to be associated basically with them, correct? Right. So 7.5% of the distribution revenue previous calendar year or the year coming up is about $240,000, right? Roughly. So do we get that one lump sum, or is that dribbled in through the whole year? Or is that even figured in? Do we actually get a cash value, or is it something that, because it's something I've never really been able to find on the balance sheet.
I don't know the answer to that. I believe it shows up as an income. It should go, yeah, it's an income
I think
and
it
it's
says
an
franchise,
expense. Yeah.
Okay.
We pay our power bill too.
No, but I mean, that's what I'm saying, like.
Yeah. I think it is an income on the income statement, I'm sure. Like, I can't remember the line, but it has to be.
Yeah, that has to be there, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it is there, but I don't know what it's labeled. But I know
It should be there, right?
It absolutely is. Yep, it's take 240,000, and so I mean even 1%. I mean looking at a 1% increase, it'd be a 10% increase overall. So it'd be another 24,000 ish. So again, I think looking at it systemically as far as all grants, revenues, etc., and making some tough decisions and some strategic direct decisions. This should likely be part of that whole thought process.
Yeah, and it is one way of
User pay.
getting some revenue from the non-tax-paying organizations and groups.
Willing to say it.
Like the schools, like the schools, like the schools.
I was thinking the hospital myself.
Yeah, in the hospital, exactly.
Right? All of those non-taxables. Oh, and maybe the churches.
You missed me, didn't you?
Probably, we forgot all about the lights over top of the cemeteries as well. Gotta get money from them too.
Yeah, should. Good thinking, man. I'm with you.
All right, so we have a motion to maintain the fees for the current year. We can vote on that, then we can make another motion. So let's start on the first motion at maintaining for the current year at 7.5%. All those in favor? It is carried. Want to make another motion, Councillor Rose?
I don't know for sure what it should say. What do you guys want to?
Well, I think you could say for 2021 that...
So you want to put the 2021 budget year?
Yeah. Council directs administration to look into options for the 2021 year. Oh, I see it. Oh, 22. Yes, because this is for 21. Yeah, for 2022. Thank you.
Prior to the signing of next year's agreement.
And it sounds like it's a Mayor Panasic motion now.
Okay, I'll make the motion.
So
Okay, what do you got?
that council direct administration to look into options for the 2022 ATCO franchise fees.
Yes, distribution fees.
Okay. Okay.
Works. Okay. All those in favor? Carried. It's gonna be one of those motions that's gonna be on the action list for a long time.
No,
Well,
as long
it's
as
good to
that-
sort of keep it there.
But it
and then
is
you
good
can
to keep,
It
yeah.
reminds us, right?
Okay, moving on then to, I guess that's up to 13, our staff and CAO report. Can I get a motion? Oh, she's got, Councillor Courtland.
That council received the CAO's Rod Rising's report and action list for information.
All right, so I'll turn it over to our new CAO and his first meeting to summarize it for us. Okay.
Well, thank you. I guess I just wanted to begin by, I guess, thanking the staff. You know, I've only been here for a week or two, but certainly the reception has been fantastic, and you have a great group of people providing services to the residents of High Prairie. They're a great team. I just wanted to recognize them first for welcoming me and actually seeing the culture that's here and the willingness to want to do better for the citizens of High Prairie. I didn't get as much done as I wanted to in the first couple weeks, but I've been able to meet with the management team a couple times. I just wanted to highlight that because I think that's an important piece. I haven't been able to get out to all the various work sites yet, but it definitely is a high priority of mine. I'm going to do that. We are working a little bit more on COVID procedures internally. I just want to bring that up because I firmly believe that as municipal employees, I think a lot of the residents look up to people within this organization, and therefore I think we can be a bit of a role model in that respect. So we're looking at some of our procedures, and we've got maybe some changes occurring, and I'm also looking at kind of a phase 2 that some of the be a little bit proactive in case there is a bit of a wave that occurs in the municipality, which I hope it doesn't, but I think it's better to be prepared than not. And I want to bring that up just from the perspective of, I think the more we can talk about COVID and make people realize it's still out there and do what they can to listen to what the health folks are telling us, I think the better. So practice safe distancing and et cetera. And I just want to put another plug in there with regards to that. We're looking into renting some space, and so that's a good thing. So hopefully it helps the bottom line. So we're working on that type of thing. There's an intermunicipal committee. Meeting agenda items is maybe just putting it out there. If there's some things you want to add on that agenda, that meeting's occurring on September 21st.
Are we having it here, or is that the county?
It's at the county. And AUMA, the conference, the last piece of information I got, it is completely virtual. So that's, I think you guys have seen that maybe in your email box. I don't think that's changing. We have canceled all the rooms for you. And if there are some of the courses, et cetera, that you would like to take, you can certainly pass them on to us. I think it would make a better sense of you're kind of centralized to make it a little bit more streamlined on the payment side. Certainly promote counselors to take as many of the courses as possible. It looks like a pretty good session, and take advantage of what's out there because there's a lot of bright minds out there. Maybe we can get some good ideas.
16th to the 23rd is education sessions. 24th and 25th is the actual sessions itself, including 2 round tables with 10 different cabinet ministers.
Oh, nice.
So, and it's not all day, it's just 2 sessions a day. Maybe 1.
No, we're good. We can do all day Zoom, right? Didn't we do that already?
Okay, that's it. Or do you have anything more to add?
Just to not catch anybody off guard, but I think one of the things I am going to request of council is a special meeting to have a bit of a strategy session as we get into the new year. So don't be surprised if we call one likely closer to the end of the month, looking at maybe potentially the last Tuesday. I know this council prefers if there is an additional meeting to do it on the 3rd Tuesday of the month, but just giving maybe a bit of a heads up and seeing if that date doesn't look
With the
bad.
regular meeting?
22nd, isn't it?
Or 22nd?
And 22nd is the next meeting.
Well, no, the week after that. 29th then.
Oh.
So just giving it a bit of a heads up
Cool.
that's what we're
Okay.
thinking of.
I think that's good to get all on the same page and get CAO up on what we want to see. And right now, we're heading into our last year. What do we really want to accomplish in the last year, and sort of prioritizing that to make sure we can get what we'd like done in our last year. So. Okay, I'll open the floor for questions, comments for CAO. Councillor Danaka.
Just a couple things. On the working on the COVID procedures, has the rec board, or is that a council decision deciding on, are we putting limits on the arena? How many people are allowed to attend an event?
So my understanding is a lot of that is coming right from the province. So both the pools and the arenas, fortunately, we have a lot of support from the province on that, and a lot of their direction is coming directly from them.
Okay.
So when we're talking a lot of the procedures internally, it's with the pool and the arena, we are looking more just at kind of the staff areas.
Oh, okay.
Because the rest of it is going to be, I don't know if it's recommended or dictated by AHS. So the good news is we got support, and there'll likely be some consistency with regards to the practices in those facilities across the province, because the province gives some direction. We're looking more at just the staff areas.
Okay. I'm not sure if you can answer this question. It may be for the treasurer, but maybe you could get that information. I'm just wondering, our tax deadline is coming up here at the end of this month, I believe. And I'm wondering I'm wondering how many people are still outstanding numbers wise. And my other question is, has the money that's been transferred that the prior CAO had taken because into operating the 4 million or whatever, he took from operating to put it into the coffers of the town so we could operate just in case there was a shortfall. Has that been paid back yet?
So I can go back and provide counsel with where we're at in the collection side. I looked at those numbers on the weekend. I think we still have about 1.6 million outstanding, but hopefully it was being recorded. But that's just what my memory recalls. And as far as the money you're talking about, as far as putting aside for COVID, I don't.
No, what had happened is because we had deferred the taxes, Brian took some money out of reserves to put it into operating.
Oh.
And we just wanted to make sure that that money gets moved back,
Yes.
is what you're saying. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, it absolutely would. I mean, we'd have to look at the motion, but that's.
Okay. So
I'm
to
not
your
sure.
knowledge, none of that has been put back into reserves yet?
I doubt it, but I will check.
Okay.
Because I don't think the whole COVID thing is expired, but I will double check.
Councillor Rose?
So just one quick question on an update from, for a meeting with the auditor. Do we have an ETA on that?
So,
you retire.
It wasn't before the last guy retired, no.
We are extremely close, and I know you've gotten the same answer for a while now, but we really believe we are close. In fact, we've got a couple dates that they were available to come up here, and fortunately one of the dates that they are available is the next council meeting. So, yes, we're really running out of time on the reporting side, so our plan is to bring it forward to the next council meeting unless something happens. We're very, very, very close.
So with the auditors at the next council meeting?
That is my understanding.
Okay, good, thanks.
I just have a question on that. I have some concerns because we have so many issues with what was discovered that we're having it at the same time as a council meeting. And I think it almost needs to be something separate in my mind, because, I mean, what are we going to give them, a half an hour as a scheduled delegation?
Let's make a really light agenda because we know we'll have a big discussion.
But those kind of
Sometimes our light agendas can go till 11 o'clock because people like to argue about the simplest things, is what I'm saying. So my concern is that with the auditors, because based on what Dave has said to us, I think it needs to be a separate meeting in terms so we can strictly focus on that issue and get some answers and define what it is that they are or are not doing for us, because we all know that based on what Dave said that we're like, pardon my language, like, holy fuck, man, why did they tell us this shit?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm thinking it needs to be a separate meeting in itself. That's just my opinion.
Councillor Gilroy.
To a certain extent, I agree with Councillor Janaka, not in her wording, but I honestly believe we need to have a very clear picture before we go into next budget deliberations. We need to know all the answers. And so to not have a full meeting for this, I think would not allow us to go into a fully idea of what's going on. So I would agree with Councillor Janaka that we need a separate meeting specifically to deal with all of the financial issues before we go into budget deliberations. And we have to have one by December 31st. So that's, I know it's putting pressure, but I believe we need it.
So just
Maybe can respond a little bit in that you're absolutely right. There's some big questions that we need to get answered. And my understand, the amount of the reserves is a big one, but they're going to have an answer, so we'll know what's there. And we've been through the auditor reports before, and those aren't very long. Like it's not that long. And your other question is good. We need to make sure we're clear on what the auditor is going to do for us and what they won't do. So moving ahead, we're very clear on that. But I think they've got a good idea of what they're going to provide and what we can say, this is what we want, and if there's any extra cost. But I don't think it's that long of a discussion. I do totally agree that budget discussions are going to be a big hot topic moving forward because of the times and how they're changing. So we're going to have lots on budget, and we're going to need that. But I think part of the budget discussion is also going to be based on what, when we have that strategy meeting, what do we really want to see happening in the next little while? So, we set our strategy, it'll help us set the budget. So I don't know. I don't know if we really need another meeting, because we are going to have the strategic planning meeting, and then we're going into budget meetings after that. So we're going to have a bunch of extra meetings in the next little while. But just to get our audited financial statement and get the presentation from the auditor, I'm not sure if that's time well spent for, I think we can do it in a council meeting and get through it. That's my opinion.
Because I just want to make sure that we get the answers, because we have some questions about the job that they did for us and why we didn't know some of the things that were pointed out to us. And I want to make sure that we are devoted to getting down to those answers and just not saying, well, we couldn't get that information. Well, why didn't you come and tell us that? Like, I want to make sure that we can be focused and get those definite answers and decide if I think we've already paid them for 5 years, I think. Was it? I think it was 5 years we extended the contract with them, I believe.
So your worship, I think it was a resolution that said we've used them for it was about a 3 or 4 year period.
I just can't remember the date. I just want to make sure that we get the answers that we need, so we can decide if you can't do the job for us, then we'll find somebody else who will be willing to tell us the brass facts, saying you guys are in bad shape, this is what's happening, you guys gotta do this, like, I mean, we didn't get any of that, and we've never gotten any of that from this auditor. Never. Ever.
No, I totally agree with you, and we need to make that very clear to our auditors. I totally agree. In fact, I had a phone call with the auditor shortly after, we found out about it, and I asked them those very questions and said why. And I think he needs to explain that to everybody and be very clear on why. And I made it clear that's not acceptable for our council. We want that information if there's problems. So, and I think that's why this particular audit is taking more time.
There was only 2 dates, so that you said that they were available to come, and one of them was a council meeting, right? So that might be our challenge, is if we can't get, like, if you want them in person. I guess the other option is, are they available by a electronic device, or if we want to do it separate, or are we better off with them actually here, and then just to have a light agenda at our council meeting, knowing that we may take a longer time with the auditor?
What was the other date?
I believe this is Thursday prior. I believe it was the Thursday prior. I will take a quick little break here and I'll go grab my sticky.
Okay, well, he's gone. Perhaps let's just have a quick, who is planning on attending AUMA? And both, I guess there's the workshop portions, and then there's the meeting portion itself. So you're attending both?
In fact, there's a really good one, economic development, on the Friday. There's a couple of them that are specific to our town, small towns and things like that. So, yes.
So you're planning to attend
I've
both?
given my list to,
Okay. So we can just, Donna, what are you planning to attend neither?
None of them, I can't.
Okay. They're not attending anything?
Is this gonna be a Zoom from home?
Yeah.
Or do we have an office here with Zoom? I don't have Zoom at home.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you
probably
could.
come in
I'm
here,
sure
though.
you could do it from here if you
There's the
wanted
office
to.
here.
Yeah.
Come back to me.
Okay. Councillor Courtly, not attending.
I plan to attend, but I'm not sure what all, because I haven't had a chance to really look at the registration package as to what I would be attending. So why are you asking it like that?
Well, no, I'm just wondering. Well, we need to get the information in to get registered. It's in a week, kind of thing.
No, I've been
Before they get-
waiting for something to come via email to us, like to say, are we, like, I mean, I know the package came from AUMA, but no council direction as to what we were doing. I wasn't sure at one point, at one point there was discussion about one person going, then there was discussion about us doing it here. Maybe that was just light conversation, but I was sort of curious what our direction was, so I didn't do anything, just waiting. So yes, I would attend something, but I can't tell you
Which one?
which
Okay.
one, yeah.
And when do you have to register by? Do you know?
Don't
Yesterday?
What's that?
I don't know.
Oh, you're not sure.
But it's just easier if, like, in the next day or two, if
Yeah.
you're going, look at it, email me everything, so I don't have to call and track people down
Yeah.
to get an answer.
If they don't give you
Your
the
favorite
list, don't register,
No.
right? That's simple.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the easy thing. If you can make a session or there's a topic in those session that interests you, to attend it. If not, I think that guy was planning on attending mostly the conference side for some of that, but not necessarily one of the workshops. Because you got to take the days off of work and everything else, so that's hard. Okay, so we're clear on AUMA and what we need to do, so we'll move back to other dates for the auditor.
Yes, the other date was the 17th, which was a Thursday, so I was correct in my first statement. So that was the only other date they provided.
17th and the 22nd.
Thursday. Yes, 22nd is our council meeting, and the 17th is an alternate date.
How does our agenda look for the 22nd? Is it a heavy one? Because I agree, we need some extra time to get through this. It's going to take
Right now, it's pretty,
I have nothing yet. I don't usually get anything till the week I have to put it together.
Okay.
Well, that's good then. You can hold some stuff off maybe for the next meeting.
Just make it light.
Yeah.
Make it light on purpose.
Okay.
And give it full effort then.
I think we need to at least give
On
them an
the,
hour.
on the
Oh,
22nd,
or
could
more.
we start early?
6:30?
At like 6:30 instead of 7?
Then you have to advertise and all that,
Oh, 'cause it's council meeting.
right?
Just regular-
How about we
regular
go
meetings.
late instead of, start early instead of advertising?
Well, what's the purpose of going early, Councillor Tanaka? And just,
Again, I just want to make sure we have enough time
yeah.
to discuss with the auditors and get the answers that we want or
Yeah.
need or.
Well, we have our 4-hour time slot,
Yes,
right?
basically. I mean, if the agenda's light, so be it, but, I mean, just in case something comes up and there's, you know,
Yeah.
discussions or whatever, I really wanna get as much time with the auditors as we can.
Councillor Gilroy?
And not to put Rod on the spot here, but Rod, knowing what we're gonna discuss with them, is there any part of the finances of our town that we'll be discussing that needs to be in camera and not public? I'm just asking an opinion, I'm not suggesting we do this, but I'm just asking.
typically, when you're talking about financial matters, some of that discussion is done in closed doors. So, I think basically what I'm seeing so far, is there anything that's alarming? I would say no. There's nothing to be there's no big alarms. But no, obviously there's some things that we need to do from an administration perspective to ensure that we don't get ourselves in this situation again. And we will do that. So.
The only reason I ask that is, once again, confidence for the town in us. And if there was something that this council and or our CEO felt that met the criteria of the MGA, then we could meet early in camera and then start the other meeting at 7 o'clock. So that everything would be done, but we wouldn't put something out there that may not be pertinent to the town to see. I'm just putting it out there. If I'm fine either way.
So there may be some pieces that would be best discussed in camera, and there'll certainly be a portion that doesn't need to be in camera. But I think there'll be a portion of it that may want to be in camera. So I guess I'm kind of sitting on the fence. There will be a portion that will be in camera, my opinion, based on what I'm seeing right now, and a portion that won't be.
Okay, well, we'll let you fit it in. You've heard that we've got concerns. We're going to need extra time to get it done at our next council meeting for sure. So make sure it's like the agenda to go from there. So we've talked about AUMA. We talked about the budget, or sort of the audit statement. Any other questions for CEO? Councillor Long?
The only thing that I would caution for everybody is that our CAO is new, and so if we've got a lot of questions about the budget, hopefully he can get it in advance so that we don't waste a lot of time here and don't put him on the spot running for sticky notes and stuff, right? So I want to be fair to you and make sure that everybody's cognizant of that. That's all. That's all.
Okay. There was another thing that he brought up, was intermunicipal agenda. Is there any items that we really want to be brought up at that time? I know. Well, we know that's a separate item that we'll be dealing with. Yeah, for sure. Anything else though? Okay, seeing none of those. Anything else? Any other questions for CEO? Councillor Gilroy.
So could we add to your strategic planning meeting a an evaluation of all the committees we're on, so that we can do that before they're, before we look at them having already been appointed as part of our strategic planning. Because we've put ourselves on a lot of committees, even temporarily lately. And can we afford to be on them? And so I'd like to be that as part of our strategy going forward, is to evaluate before we suddenly say, and this counselor's here and there, and then we say, well, let's take away. I'd rather have it before we do the changeover at the organization meeting. So could we put that as part of our organization meeting?
So
I mean, sorry, the strategic meeting, so we can evaluate all the committees we're on, since it's that strategic planning meeting, and then get rid of some that we don't believe will be meet the value that we need for next term. Is that possible? Even just discuss it?
Well, I guess from my perspective, and that's one of the first questions I asked, because there do appear to be a lot of committees, and that's no different than any other municipality. One of the things that I do look at committees is what are the terms of reference and what are the outcomes. And I'm not sure there's a great tracking mechanism for that. And in addition to that, I'm not part of a lot of those committees. So I think a review of a lot of the committees is going to be difficult from administration's perspective, because some of those committees we're not on. And so I think the members of council that are part of those committees probably have a lot better feedback mechanism as far as whether you feel it's of value. But it certainly,
we have an open discussion about it, is what I'm saying, as part of our planning.
I think it stems out of that, especially considering if the strategy session goes well and council gives some clear direction on what some of the mandates are. That gives you an idea as to maybe what slots into what committee and what's aligned with your strategic direction, what is not. So I think it does form part of that. So I can include it as part of the agenda.
Appreciate that.
Okay, I just had a couple of questions for you. I just noticed you're in discussions with entities looking to rent space. Is that here, or is that in the Moose Tooth?
Moose Tooth, a couple things, and plus some potential space in the arena.
Okay. And the other thing I was just wondering, is there anything new on the economic development side on those possible projects? Any new developments there? Or are they just in status quo mode at this point?
There has been some movement on one of the projects. I do know one of the developers was in town, I think it was 2 weeks ago. One of the owners of one of the parcels, I think that you're referring to, was in town a couple weeks ago, and is very optimistic that they'll be able to start proceeding shortly, and they're hoping by Christmas this time next year they'd be done. So I think there's been some hurdles on one of the developments that have been overcome, and so I think we're pretty optimistic, at least from an administration perspective, that at least one of those projects is going to be proceeding.
Good.
They have been in contact with some of our public works folks, so that's a good sign, and that things are progressing, but until, I don't like jinxing things.
Oh, I know.
So,
yeah.
Kind of history here.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, any other questions for CL? Seeing none, we have a motion to receive for information. All those in favor? It is carried. Moving on to the FCSS report. Councillor Stenhouse.
That council received the August FCSS report and monthly stats for information.
Thank you. And any questions, comments on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? It is carried. So moving on to our written and verbal reports. Councillor Daneka,
No report.
Councillor Gilroy,
I was at High Prairie Aboriginal Interagency Committee meeting by Zoom this morning. A couple things to note. One is they may be withdrawing their, it's not 100% yet, but they may be withdrawing the option for the powwow to be held at the arena, and they may be looking for an outside facility. And I was just talking to Councillor Courtley there about tents, because I want them to be in JC Park. However, they're looking at a number of them. They'll still keep it in town, but they're looking at a couple different options because of the COVID restrictions. They're still looking at having the tea dance in February, depending on COVID restrictions as well. It's one where you don't have to hold hands, so it's kind of a neat one there. And that would, if they do that one, it'll probably be at the Eagle's Nest. So there's a couple of changes there. They have a couple things at the end of this month. It's Orange Shirt Day on the 30th, and then there's a Sister Spirit Walk in October. So there's a couple of things. And I did talk to Chris Clegg from Beautification, because we're still trying to figure out if we can get some more First Nation involvement in the Christmas light up, if we're going to have it. Because I'd like to see our neighbors come in and do some, have a parade float and other things to be involved, because they're part of our community. I was also at the airport for a little while before I came back for a couple other meetings, such as broadband as well. There are more, but I'm just going to keep it at those particular ones so I don't bore you guys to sleep. So I'll make a motion that council receive my verbal report for information.
Go ahead, Councillor Stanos.
So what's the orange shirt representing?
The Orange Shirt Day is a reminder of the residential schools, and promotes healing by having healing understanding by having the students wear orange shirts, or anybody in the community that wants to wear one of the orange shirts, or an orange shirt period, just to recognize the fact that there's still some healing that needs to be taking place because of all that has happened. So it is an educational piece, but it's something that, if we go back to what was said a while ago by our Halifax contingent, we do need to continue to remind people that we do love our neighbors and that we want the best for them as well.
Any other questions?
He's a Halifax contingent?
I think he looked at me and said that. Oh, and you.
Well, you two were the ones that went to Halifax, right?
Yeah.
Came back with that.
And looking at the African, Nova Scotian residents.
But then you came back and was talking about the First Nation people here.
I can't believe he remembered all that stuff.
Oh, it's still on the, let's take it off the to-do list, but anyway.
Okay, anything else? Seeing none, did you move your report?
I did.
You did. Okay, all in favor? Carried. Councillor Long?
Nothing to report.
All right. Line, I attended the Business Support Network meeting we've already talked about. I attended the Alberta Council webinar regarding the provincial budget and some of their implications online. Just the quick summary that we already know is the province is in deep financial caca. And you know, there's going to be some changes. We don't know what they're going to be. There's lots of speculation based on, you know, that announcement that they've made. I attended the Heart River Housing meeting with the Canadian Mortgage Housing Corporation to see if we can get some funding for that through them. So they're working on a application to apply for them to see. There's sort of two streams, a seed funding stream and then a grants, that's the grant side of things. And then there's the low interest loan on some of that. So they're applying on both to see what they can get. the broadband meeting, and I think this is a good one to spend just a little bit of time on, because we need to, as a council, make sure we're clear on a direction going ahead. We talked before that the county and us were not going ahead with that joint municipally owned network, right? We've said sort of no to that for a bunch of reasons, money being the key one. And, you know, we were hoping to get a grant when we said that. So now, at this point, the county is looking more for their residents, and they're looking more to the Starlink. And Councillor Rose and Councillor Gilroy can correct me if I'm not representing things right. They can clear that up. But I think they're looking at going down that direction. That's certainly the feel that they indicated at the meeting. That's they've been dealing with Starlink. They're within Starlink's region. There was some concerns that they might be too far north to be able to get the coverage through the satellites, but they will be able to get it. And it'll be, you know, it's totally unproven, so nobody really knows, but the coverage would be reasonable, and especially for some of the more remote people that don't have any coverage for internet, this is going to be a fantastic for them. That option doesn't really, it's not going to be much better than what we have in town. So I think for the town, we need to look at something more, because we've got businesses that need to upload information, download information more than some. So I think we've got to look for a better solution for ourselves. And there was presentations there by a couple of providers. One was TELUS, one was CCI Wireless, and they were both good. But we need to decide where we want to go, and if we want to go out on our own and that kind of thing, so as we move ahead. So that's sort of, you know, when we look at what we want to do, we need to make a commitment to where we want to go and keep exploring some options at this point in time. I know at the presentation that TELUS gave, they had said, yep, we'll put fiber to every house, and but they wanted half of the capital costs up front. So they figured it was around 5 million, so it was around 2.5 million to move us up in the queue so that they could come and do it in 2022. Now, I know Councillor Long had heard something different from, and I'm not sure of the source again, but if we can, he had heard that TELUS would come here for $200,000. So if we can get any, or 400, if we can get them, get TELUS in here for 400,000 and they put fiber into everybody, if you can get a name or a number, let's get it, because we need to find some better solutions to getting in here. So I think we're at a point now where the town needs to find their own solution, and we need to start moving on that sort of on our own. Not to say that we can't involve the county, and there might be some things that overlap, but they're heading down this path that I don't think is going to be right for us. And we had a good conversation about this at the last meeting, and you know, my question was, what's the purpose of the broadband committee at the end of this, right? I don't know if they're going this way and we want to go, you know, in a different direction. The broadband committee isn't really needed. We can probably continue to communicate about where we're going with broadband and any possibilities of overlap at the intermunicipal meeting. So that was a possibility that I put out there, but we didn't really get was at the end of the meeting, didn't really get an answer to it all, if that's safe to say. And I think we can hammer some more of that stuff out at our strategic planning session about where we want to go with broadband, and but I think we need more options, and I know there was another option that Councillor Gilroy heard of, and you know, I don't know anything more about it, but there's other things out there, and we need to start gathering that information and finding out options and picking the best route for our town.
Give everybody a little update, because I'm confused a bit about CCI.
Yep.
Like, what did they present? Because I know their strategy was different than Telesys. I mean, of course, it was very wireless, so it's a wireless strategy. But their cost was way lower. Was it definitely just a solution for the county? Like, I mean, they were there presenting to town and county. But for some reason, I thought that he was still providing us numbers of uploads and downloads that were going to be greater than what we're getting right now.
Yes, he could, and we'd have to talk to them again to get final, because you're right, he did talk about how he would service all of the different communities. And do we want to go with that, you know, a wireless connectivity? They were very open to working with us on whatever we wanted. Even if we wanted to go all wired, they were willing to discuss it, and they are a provider, so they're a good option. We didn't get the chance to really go over all of the options from a town perspective at that meeting, because it was town and county and what would it be, and having those kinds of information. And like I said, we found out about the cable, the coaxial cable for the cable network is still available for us. So there's another avenue we might be able to go, but we got to flush those sort of things out to make the best decision going forward.
My take on that meeting was that, and I believe we asked too, in a sense we asked for their blessing to go on our own. And by that I mean we wanted to make sure that they were clear that if it was better for our people to go alone and not to invest in the overall strategy, then we want to know if it was going to cause any conflict if we did it that way. And my impression was they said, at this point, because of the financial restrictions on the county, if you need to do what you need to do in High Prairie first. And if that means you look at it for yourself first, I believe they said it won't be a point of contention, is what I'm saying, is to remind us that we checked out ahead of time to make sure that it wasn't going to be misconstrued that way. And the cable works well if people haven't chopped it up in their backyard. Just hit on that one.
Okay, so I think we can talk more about that at our strategic planning session, and just, you know, where we want to go with that, because there's going to be dollar figures attached to that, and we need to get some more information and go from there. And the last thing is there's a Northern Alberta elected leaders meeting on Thursday, and just wondering if there was anything you guys really wanted to bring up for that event.
You talked about our lack of doctors.
I haven't seen they sent out the agenda, and I haven't really read it over, but we can probably talk about that. It usually comes up every meeting. That's one of those ongoing topics. Yeah, because it impacts all of the communities in the north. Okay, I don't see any other questions. I move my report for information. All those in favor? It's carried. Councillor Courtley?
The only thing I've done was attended the grand reopening of the airport, August 26th, I think it was. 26th? 26th? Whatever, 27th, whatever. Okay. I can't remember the date, but it was good. It was well attended, actually. We did it in conjunction with a airplane poker rally out of it was an Alberta Associated Members group. I don't have the name in front of me, but it was we had over 15 planes fly in and out that day, plus the air ambulance. So that was not part of the poker rally, of course, but it was nice to see them, and they,
Bring your resume.
yeah, you bet. So, but you know, it was well attended. It was everybody was able to tour the airport and all the upgrades and everything that's been done, and all the pilots are absolutely thrilled about the new overlay and the lengthening of the airport, especially the medics. They're really, because they're in and out of here. I didn't know to the extent, but Mel says a lot of times they're 5 times a day flying in and out of here, which I didn't know that either. Now that's facts. You'd think a guy would know, but I didn't know that. But so they're really happy with the upgrade, especially with the lighting, the new lighting, the overlay, the extension. So they have no trouble coming in with the big planes. And yeah, well, there's a lot of everybody that came in was really really happy with the upgrades, especially the fuel station, because it's one of the best in basically northern Alberta, where they can come in, anybody can come in, fly in, and use their credit card and just fill up the plane, and that doesn't happen anywhere else. So that's a big thing. And Stars comes and they land here and use that too now. So our fuel sales are rising through that system. So no, it's good.
Councillor Gilroy?
This may have to go to intermunicipal, or it may just go to your airport committee, but is there a possibility that in the near future, this council, since we are investing money in the airport again, where we can have some stats on how often it's used, what the financial, just some sort of financial accounting for revenues and expenses, so we have an idea of what's happening with the airport, as opposed to popping over there for one event. So I'm just asking if we can do that, so we can justify putting the money into it. Okay.
Okay. I don't have that with me.
No,
of
no,
course.
I'm asking you to bring it to your committee so that
Yeah.
you can have it later, please.
Okay.
Anything else for Councillor Courtly? Do you want to move your report,
I could.
please?
Okay. I move my report, verbal report for information.
All in favor? Carried. Councillor Rose?
Well, it sounds like everybody's been to the same meetings that I've been to, so I don't really have anything to report, besides just an update I got from Marion on the surveys for the recreation master planning. She said that she had over 200, which was really cool. So glad to see that response, and I hope everybody filled it out. And I think otherwise it's closed. But anyway, we have a master planning meeting at the end of September, and we'll get those results, and we'll be able to provide them back to council.
Any questions from Councillor Rose? All those in favor? It's carried. Councillor Stenhouse?
And I also attended the presentation for the business support at the Big Lakes County and the airport reopening. And I spoke to a couple of the pilots, and their highlight was the fueling station. That they were very impressed with the fueling station. And that's it. I move my verbal report for information.
Any
I like the guy who
questions?
said, let me have the burgers.
Yeah. No questions for Councillor Stenhouse? Okay, all in favor? It is carried. We'll take a break and then we can move into a closed session.